we didn't cover Sam Eichenbaum, his grandpa. When we got to know him as kids, he was isolated, or he isolated himself from Grandma and the mishbucha. And he spent most of his time growing his own fruit and sleeping outdoors or sleeping with the windows open in San Francisco. And he was a spiritualist in his own way. And he was a physically fit human being. And he was a very healthy guy. And he lived his own individual lifestyle. And there was one time when he used to tell me about the way of life and such. And Adolf, his son, came in and says, "Dad, don't talk to the kid, he won't understand." I was about 8 years old. And he said, well, he might. And so it so happens that as I grew up, I did remember a lot of what he said.
Could you tell us?
Well, I can only tell you that he had a direct effect on me sleeping out of doors and living a healthy, happy life. And I try to emulate him physically, mentally, and emotionally, and a lot of spirit. And the very specific words I would have to emulate, because I've learned a lot of stuff since then, and I don't know what, I don't know if I can sort out exactly what he told me versus what I now know. But he had a hammock, and he put me on the hammock on the top of this home, and he swung me out, and I looked down, and there was like 75 feet to drop because it was off the roof, and then it would come back. And he got a kick out of that. Do you remember that hammock? And then when I used to sleep with him, he'd have the window open. I was freezing, but he wanted fresh air. And of course, frankly, today, I don't know any better than to sleep outside myself in the summer and to live a very different, unique life. And he was his own man.
He moved to Marin County, not far from San Anselmo.
You're talking about Rudy?
Grandpa.
Grandpa
I'm
did?
talking about Grandpa right now.
Okay, Grandpa Eichenbaum, okay.
And so there, he liked the running water in the kitchen, but he wasn't really fond of a bathroom being inside a house. So he built a outhouse over a gulch. He planted his vegetables in the gulch and used what his family must have used in Europe was human waste for fertilizer. I remember that real well.
Did Sam eat meat? Was he a vegetarian? Was he...
He ate his own food.
Yeah, I think I remember him eating vegetables.
Yeah. He would cut his own stuff up, and I knew him as a guy eating vegetables and fruit. He grew in all his strawberries in a big barrel. He had holes in the barrel, and he'd water it down, and the strawberries throughout the barrels would get wet, and he'd grow them. This was in San Francisco. And he went to Marin County because his grandson, his son, I think it was Gene, that owned a big, was it a hotel or something there?
Yeah. Well,
and he put Sam in there. And then there was a time when Sam wound up at the state mental hospital in Napa because he had some delusions. And he was quite different.
What were the delusions?
Well,
tell them the rest of the story about the institution. When they called you up.
what about it?
They called you up and they said, your grandfather isn't eating. You don't remember that story?
No, I don't remember that.
Holy mackerel. I'll never forget it. So they call him up and they said, your grandfather's not eating. So he goes up there to see Granddad and he says, Granddad, I hear you're not eating. He says, the voices told me not to. He says, oh yeah, they told me to tell you can eat now. He says, okay. That's a true story. And I'm shocked that you don't remember that.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He was a character. He was stone deaf. I was real loud. We got along perfect.
He was a talker. And then about Rudy, Rudy happened to be the extravaganza, the most outgoing man in the family that knew how to live in a life of luxury and opulence. He showed me, took me to a bank, he showed me safes where we had nothing but money, cash in the safes. And he had homes that showed he looked like a king. And he was the first one in the family that had TV. We didn't even know what TV was. He was the first man in the family that had color TV. He was the first one in the family that had a tremendous layout in San Francisco. And then he had a phenomenal home in Marin County. And you know where that was.
Yeah.
I think it was San Anselmo, wasn't it?
It's San Anselmo.
Yeah, it was Deer Hollow Road, 108 Deer,
Oh,
Deer
yeah.
Hollow Road.
Oh, my God, good.
He bought
For you.
the house through the FBI because they had taken the house away from a bookie.
Was this after or before he went to prison?
Oh, this was after. And he was paid cash.
He ostensibly buried money. And
Yeah.
then he sold the house at St. John's Woods to the Indian government. And that was their...
Oh, they had an embassy there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in this particular home that he had.
Was this a 108 property or?
No, then he bought the property. When he got out of jail, then he bought that property.
In San Anselmo.
And
And
it had a shotgun tower, a tower with glass all around. The guy used to sit there with a shotgun, 6,500 volt electric fence around it, around the place.
and he had like 22 phones, and that's how they found the bookies.
Oh, and he had electric eyes, so you couldn't open the door to the bedroom without setting off electric eye.
I think he had an Olympic-sized pool there, too.
Olympic size.
Yeah,
It was a little
and he used to have us come over on the weekends to play, and he would entertain us on a frequent basis.
I
He
have,
was
I have a few
a
interesting
class
stories
man.
about him, Joe. If you want to hear some.
You knew the character.
Ralphie was his eldest son. Ralphie worked for him. Ralphie was about 15 years old. They had strippers. Strippers were upstairs, and Rudy would tell Ralphie, go get Vicky. And go up there, and of course Vicky would be flashing her stuff to Ralphie. And Ralphie says to me, he says, if my dad only knew, man, I would have worked there for free. Okay, so Bobby worked there. They were buying champagne, two bucks the bottle. They're selling the champagne, 20 bucks the bottle. So he was dealing with one of his customers, and he was helping his customer drink the champagne. They kept on ordering champagne. Bobby had a date. The place is supposed to close at 2 o'clock. Bobby has a date. Time gets there, and he knows he's going to lose on this date. He's just all ticked off because his father, cut him no slack. So he takes the bottle, the next bottle, and whizzes in it. So he takes the bottle to his dad, and Dad pours it, and then says, "Okay, we're ready for the bill." He says, "Okay." He says, "Dad," did that last champagne taste no funny to you?" And he goes, "Yeah, it did." He says, "Well, it should have, because I pissed in it."
Oh, God.
He was smart enough to be backing away from the bar. Rudy comes swinging over that bar. Bobby goes running up the stairs and says, "I know, I'm fired." And he leaves. And a couple of days later, he gets a phone call from his dad saying, "All's forgiven." Just come back to the bar.
So who is the kid after Rudy?
Adolf.
The kid after Rudy.
Well, wait a minute. Rudy also was known as a boxer and a wrestler. And there was a time he had some big diamond rings on his hands. And he went to the restroom of his bar, and two guys followed him in to take his rings. And as the story goes, he cleaned house on those two guys and came out by himself. he cleaned.
Another time he was in San Anselmo, there was a black guy who used to work for him for many years as a gardener. And the black guy, as standard, would, when he came to work, he'd take his lunch and put it in the refrigerator in the kitchen, go to work. Then lunchtime he'd go into there, get his lunch and eat his lunch. Well, these two guys who Rudy told me had worked for him, but were in masks, came in, drew the guns on Rudy, said, "Open your safe or we'll kill you." And just at that point, the black guy came in to get his lunch. And he looks over and sees what's happening. They look right there and says, "That nigger got away." And out the door, goes the black guy, jumps over the fence, and is gone. So that saved Rudy's life.
Really?
That was toward the end. Then David Gordon drove for Rudy because Rudy would drive down the road with one wheel on one side of the line, one wheel on the other side of the line.
Probably when he was drinking, yeah.
Yeah, so I sent